Good boy.
Every time Daniel opened the back door, Bear would pause. He wouldn't rush outside right away. He wouldn't bark. He wouldn't pull toward the yard. He would just stand there for a few seconds, looking at the grass, then back at Daniel, as if he still needed permission to be happy. And every time Daniel saw that, it broke his heart a little, because he knew Bear wasn't afraid of the backyard. Bear was afraid that one day, the door might close behind him, and no one would let him back in. Daniel first found Bear on an ordinary afternoon. He was driving home from work when he noticed something dark, curled up, beside an old empty house at the end of the street. At first he thought it was a blanket, then it moved. Daniel pulled over. When he walked closer, he saw a large brindle Cane Corso lying against the fence. His coat was dirty, his body was thin, there were dry leaves stuck to his fur, and beside him was an empty plastic bowl. Bear didn't bark, he didn't growl, he didn't even try to run. He just lifted his head and looked at Daniel with tired eyes, the kind of eyes that seemed to say he had already waited too long for someone to come back. Daniel sat down a few feet away. He didn't reach for him right away. He didn't speak loudly. He just said softly, "Hey buddy, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." Bear kept watching him, but he didn't move away. Daniel went back to his car and grabbed an old jacket from the back seat. Then he slowly placed it over Bear's body. The dog flinched when the jacket touched his back, so Daniel stopped. He waited. Then he sat beside him until animal rescue arrived. He didn't do anything big. He didn't try to be a hero. He just stayed. And for a dog who had been left behind, staying was probably the first kindness he had felt in a long time. A few days later, Daniel went to the shelter to check on him. He told himself he was only going to visit, just to make sure the dog was okay. But the moment he walked into the kennel area, Bear lifted his head, and Daniel knew the dog remembered him. Bear stood slowly and came to the front of the kennel. He didn't jump. He didn't wag his tail wildly. He simply lowered his big head and pressed his nose against Daniel's hand through the bars. It was such a small thing, but to Daniel, it felt like trust trying to begin. The shelter staff told Daniel that Bear was quiet, gentle, careful around people, but also very unsure, as if he was still waiting for life to disappoint him again. That stayed with Daniel. All night, he kept thinking about Bear's eyes. A few days later, Daniel came back. This time, he wasn't there just to visit. He was there to take Bear home. When Bear stepped out of the car, he stood in the driveway for a long time. A small porch, a white garage door, a simple house on a quiet street. Nothing special to most people. But to Bear, it looked like something he wasn't sure he was allowed to have. Daniel opened the back door. Bear looked out at the yard. He didn't run. He looked back at Daniel first. So Daniel unclipped the leash and said quietly, "Go ahead, Bear, this is your home." Bear took one step, then another. Then he walked a little faster, and finally he ran a short circle through the grass. Not fast, not wild, just enough to feel free. Then he turned around to make sure Daniel was still there. Daniel smiled, because in that moment the house didn't feel so quiet anymore. The first few weeks were not perfect. Bear was gentle, but he was scared of little things.
Down.
A door closing too hard, a truck passing outside, a trash bag being dragged across the driveway. Any loud sound made him freeze, and when he got scared, he didn't bark. He just looked at Daniel, as if he was asking, "Is this where I lose everything again?" Daniel never scolded him. He never forced him to calm down. He would simply sit beside him, speak in a low voice. "You're okay, Bear. You're home." And then he would prove it in small ways. Dinner at the same time every night. A soft bed beside the couch. A hand that moved slowly. A door that always opened again. At first, Bear followed Daniel everywhere. If Daniel went to the kitchen, Bear went too. If Daniel walked into the hallway, Bear got up. If Daniel stepped outside for only a minute, Bear waited by the door with his eyes fixed on the handle. Daniel used to laugh softly and say, "Bear, I'm just getting the mail." But deep down he understood. Bear wasn't being needy. He was learning what it felt like when someone came back. And slowly, Daniel realized something else. Bear wasn't the only one healing. Before Bear came home, Daniel's house had been quiet in a way he didn't like to admit. Dinner was quiet. Mornings were quiet. Even weekends felt empty. But now there were footsteps on the floor, a heavy sigh beside the couch, a big head resting on Daniel's knee whenever he sat too long in silence. Bear didn't know how to say thank you, but he showed it every day by following Daniel from room to room, by waiting at the door, by leaning his whole body against him like he had finally found a warm place in the world where he didn't have to be afraid. Almost 2 weeks after Bear came home, he barked for the first time. Just once, a delivery man had knocked on the front door, and Bear stood in the living room and let out one deep bark.
But you're your dog's best friend for his whole life?
Bear gave him a reason to come home early, a reason to open the blinds in the morning, a reason to sit outside in the yard instead of spending another evening alone in front of the television. Animals can't tell us everything they've been through. They can't explain why certain sounds scare them. They can't tell us who left them behind. And they can't ask in words, do I get to stay this time? So we answer them with what we do, with patience, with gentleness, with coming back. Again and again. Bear didn't just find a house. He found Daniel. And Daniel didn't just bring home a dog. He brought life back into a quiet place. Now when Bear steps into the backyard, he doesn't pause as long as he used to. He walks out into the grass. He lifts his head. He lets the sun touch his face. Then he turns around and looks for Daniel. And Daniel is always there, standing by the door, smiling back at him. Because sometimes love doesn't arrive loudly. Sometimes it begins with a tired dog beside an empty house. A man who decided to stop his car. An old jacket placed gently over a shaking body. And a promise made without many words. You're safe now. You're home. And this time, you get to stay.